This is a preview of my Python backend course. If you'd be interested in this, check out the link down in the pinned comment or in the description. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 4. This is potentially one of the most important episodes if you're getting started with building projects in Python, because we're going to talk about virtual environments and requirements.txt, basically the different packages that we have as dependencies for our project. This is considered the foundation because any project you build is going to do this and use these tools. So you need to understand virtual environments, which can be a little confusing when you get started, but after you do it a couple of times, if you just follow the same pattern every time, it's going to make a lot of sense. So let's first talk about pip, which is used to install packages. Now, I can't say for sure because there doesn't seem to be a consensus, but a lot of people say pip stands for pip installs packages. So yes, a recursive acronym. So you may be able to say pip3 and get the version with -- version. However, a more guaranteed approach is invoke Python the way you would whether you're on Mac or Windows. So Python 3 on Mac or just Py on Windows. So we'll say Python 3 -m pip, and then any command for pip coming after this, such as -- version. Now to find packages, you will use pypi.org. You can search any package. We showed you this earlier on in the course. So you can see some of the trending projects and new releases. So that's pretty cool. Honestly, whenever you can, just use a package. Try not to reinvent the wheel, unless you really like building things from scratch. So how do you know which packages you have? Well, one of the commands with pip is freeze. So you can say pip freeze, and that's going to list out all the different packages installed on your system. As you can see, I have a ton of them. So to install something, you just use the pip command, pip install requests. Now, just again, as a reminder, it's probably going to be the last time I say this. You can say pip3 or try just pip alone, or the equivalent command through Python would be invoking Python, in this case 3-m pip install, and then the name of the package. However, since I can invoke pip3 directly, I'll just say pip3 install, and then the name of a package such as requests, which is used to make web requests. You see a bunch of stuff pop up. You can see requirements already satisfied. And when you install a package for the first time, it's going to go through and install any other packages that package depends on. So your dependencies also have dependencies. So you might only install one thing, but really you're installing like 5 things. Now, if this is your first time doing this, you could invoke pip3 freeze and confirm that you now have new packages in your list. But as I said, I already have that one, so it looks exactly the same for me. Now, when we install a package, it gets installed globally. So it's available anywhere on our machine. So it's not just this terminal session or anything. You could open a new window, invoke the same command, and get the same results. This can introduce some interesting challenges. So say you're working in a team environment, and you might be using, let's say, request 2.26, and your partner might be using 2.27, and they use features that are not in 2.26. So the code doesn't work right on your computer. This is a problem. So you update requests. Well, maybe you wanted to keep 2.26 for another project you already have. Or some of you might be saying, hey, I'm not really working in a team environment. Well, in that scenario, what if you have multiple projects and you want to have the exact versions for each project, and you want to use those versions whenever you're working on that project? You might not always want to use the most up-to-date, highest version of every dependency. Say you're working on a project and you stop working on that project and you come back to it a few years later. Well, all those changes and updates in the dependencies could potentially break your project. So the problem is that we need to have the ability to have different versions of these dependencies. What exactly is the solution? Well, the solution is virtual environments, where it allows you to use just the dependencies needed for a specific project and the exact versions. So this project over here can have its own version of the dependencies and its own list, and this project over here can have its own list. And you can switch between these virtual environments depending on what project you're working on. For some reason, when I started with Python, this was like the hardest thing for me to wrap my brain around, and probably because I didn't have a lot of experience working with different projects and working with different versions of dependencies. When you're starting off, installing things globally will usually do the trick. But as you get deeper into this, you'll understand the value of the virtual environments. So just consider this one of those things that you need to learn. You might not see the value in it now, but later down the road, it'll help you and you'll be thankful that you started doing it the right way. Another big benefit of the virtual environments, and additionally the freeze command that we just showed earlier, you can make a text file that has the list of every dependency needed. Not only can this be used to share with someone else working on the project, but the server that you end up deploying to can go through this list and install all of the dependencies needed for the project. So in that situation, we have matching environments locally as we do on the deployment server, which can really help when we're trying to develop software to avoid the "it works on my machine" problem where it doesn't work in deployment. So that is the solution, virtual environments. So again, we'll make the entire list of dependencies, and that's going to go in a text file listed out, and that text file is known as requirements.txt, and we'll see that in action really soon. The server that we deployed to is going to go through that list and install all of those dependencies. So let's go through some hands-on with this. Let's go back to our terminal. I'm just going to clear the screen, and what I want you to do now is I want you to travel to a directory where you're going to be building your projects. So if you just want a directory to keep everything for this course, I'm just going to go into my computer science directory, and I'm going to make a directory called files. And this is a little small. I zoomed in earlier, but that was on the other tab. So I'll zoom in on this tab here. And now what we can do is we can change directory into the files directory. And from here, we're going to learn about virtual environments. So we'll clear the screen just to get a clean slate. I'll close out of this other terminal here. So the tool to create a virtual environment is called venv. So anytime you want to create a virtual environment, that's what you're going to type out, followed by the name of the virtual environment, and I'm going to put it in the current directory. So I will always name my virtual environments .venv. This is a convention. You can name it tacos, you can name it whatever you want. As long as you don't name it pineapple on pizza, that is not going to work. So we'll go with .venv, and I'll explain a few reasons why. So hit enter. So generally, the dot at the beginning of a file makes it a hidden file, so it's not going to show up by default when you say something like ls. You'll have to go a little bit extra and say ls-a, and now you see that hidden folder. So it makes it hidden, but it also tells something to people who see this folder. When you see something with a dot, it means this is not supposed to be touched. Leave it alone. There's going to be software and tools that can work with this folder, but you're not going to work with it directly. So you don't need to go in that directory. Git is going to do something very similarly where you have a .git folder. You don't need to touch these. They're important and they're necessary for the software, but the main reason it's there is for the software, not for you. So that's why I put the dot there. It just tells everybody, hey, don't touch this folder. Now you don't have to do the dot. You will also just see venv a lot, or environment, or all kinds of variations. So let's go ahead and take a look inside of this directory. So we will say ls.venv. You got bin, include, lib, and pyvenv.cfg. On Windows, it's going to be a little bit different. You're still going to have include, lib, and this one here. But instead of bin, you're going to have scripts. So we created the virtual environment, and that is in our directory, but that's not the only thing we have to do. We actually have to activate the virtual environment, and you can do that with a dot. So we'll say dot, and then go into the directory, which is .venv, into the bin directory, and then the activate script. Hit enter, and now it prefixes our terminal prompt with .venv. So now we know the virtual environment is active. And the way you can easily see this is now you should be able to say pip -- version, and we no longer have to prefix that with a 3. Same thing with Python -- version. This is Python 3.9. You can still use the 3, but there's no need to now. And the next thing you can do to prove that this is something new is you can say pip freeze, and take a look at that. Nothing shows up. So we've basically just put new glasses on, a new view of the world. We now have no packages installed. We still have all those ones installed globally, but in our virtual environment, there's nothing. And we can switch out of this virtual environment by saying deactivate, and now we switch back to seeing everything. So that's the process. We can activate it with .venv bin activate, and then pip freeze to see everything installed in that virtual environment. Beautiful. On Windows, it's going to be slightly different. More details in the notes, but it's going to look like this. venv, scripts, activate. You can do that within Git Bash or within PowerShell. However, within PowerShell, you might run into some security issues. And in that situation, you'll need to execute something like this. Set execution policy, unrestricted -scope process. And I'm by no means a security expert, so you might want to look into how this affects things, but this will adjust the permissions for the current PowerShell session, so you're not changing anything global on your computer. So yeah, I totally did that from memory and totally did not reference my notes for that. But I would just first try it within Git Bash, and if it works, then you're good to go. And to deactivate, you're going to use the same exact command, deactivate. So now what we can do is we can install packages within our virtual environment. So let's go ahead and say pip install requests. And now you can see it's going to go through the installation process again. All right, there we go. A little bit more of the description of a virtual environment. Each virtual environment has its own Python binary, which matches the version of the binary that was used to create the environment, and can have its own independent set of installed Python packages in its site directories. In a moment here, we'll talk about a centralized location for virtual environment directories, but I'm going to do a quick review. If you truly understand, then you can skip ahead. I just wanted to make sure you didn't miss the point. You can use a virtual environment to organize your projects. When you activate a virtual environment, Python only sees the packages installed in that virtual environment. It doesn't see any of the packages installed in other virtual environments or the packages installed globally. And the 4 essential commands that you should know, Python 3 -m venv.venv is the first one to create a virtual environment called .venv. The next is to activate, so dot to source the file, and then .venv bin activate. Then you can use a command inside that activate a virtual environment as we are now, such as pip install package name, whatever that package may be, such as requests. And then lastly, you can deactivate the virtual environment with deactivate. If you can just memorize those 4 commands, you are golden, and you won't struggle with virtual environments in the future. So this is a really dumb illustration, but I want to talk a little bit about centralized location for virtual environments. Let's say you have a couple pairs of sunglasses in real life. You might have a pair of really dark sunglasses, maybe they're like polarized and all fancy, and you wear those outside. Then you have a lighter pair of sunglasses that maybe you wear on your porch, if you're out reading or something, I don't know. And then you have a pair of glasses you wear inside that are not sunglasses and they don't dim the light at all. Well, you could put all these sunglasses in the location that you might use them. So you might leave the really dark glasses outside, you might leave the sort of dark glasses on the porch, and you could leave your normal glasses in the kitchen. Where when you activate a virtual environment, it's like putting on a pair of glasses, and it controls how you see things. It controls which packages are made available to you. And then you can deactivate, take those glasses off, go somewhere else, and grab another pair of glasses and activate, and that's going to control what you see. Just like sunglasses change the way things appear, the virtual environment changes what packages appear for your projects. Well, in this scenario, we've spread out these glasses in the different locations so that they're right there when we want to use them. Alternatively, you could take all these glasses and put them in the same location in a glasses box that you have in your closet. And then what you do is you go to that closet and you grab the pair of glasses and then go to whatever destination you're looking for, such as outside. And you can take those glasses around, you can wear them anywhere you want, but it's always going to look like the pair of glasses you put on. If you put the really dark ones on, it's always going to look much darker. Well, you can do the same exact thing with virtual environments, where instead of creating a .venv file inside of your project directory, you could actually have a directory outside of all your projects just called virtual environments. And that's where you can store different virtual environments and use whichever one you like whenever you want. So which way you want to do this is totally up to you. I prefer to have the virtual environment in the project directory so I don't have to go searching around for it. I know exactly where it's at, and that's just the convention I've followed. But a lot of people will just have a single directory for all of their virtual environments. So I want to go through an example of this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change directory out of our files directory, which we'll end up using later probably. And I'm going to make a directory called projects, and we'll go ahead and just change directory into projects. And let's say we have multiple projects. So we'll say mkdir project 1, project 2, and instead of storing the virtual environment inside of those projects, we could have a directory called VE and VS. So it's kind of looks funny because I'm zoomed in really far. So like this. So now we're going to have 3 directories. So when we say ls, we got the project 1, project 2, and the virtual environments. So let's say we wanted to have certain dependencies for project 1 that are different than project 2. You're going to need 2 virtual environments. So what we can do is we can say Python 3, and I'm actually still within a virtual environment. So you can see you're always activated until you explicitly say deactivate, which I will because we don't need to be in one. So we're still in the same location. What we'll do now is we will create a virtual environment. So we'll say Python 3 -m venv, and instead of saying .venv, which will create one in the current directory, the projects directory, we're going to put this inside of venvs, the directory, and we'll just create the first one called project 1. So that created the virtual environment, and now we're going to do the same exact thing for project 2. So now you want to work on your projects, and you can go to your virtual environments directory and choose which one you want. Sort of like going to your little glasses box and picking out which pair of glasses you need. So let's say we're going to work on project 1. All you would do is you would say dot, and then instead of .venv that we did earlier, we're just going to go into venvs/project 1/bin/activate. There we go. And now you can see we have the project 1 virtual environment activated. Then let's say we install something. We'll say pip install Django. This might take a moment. And now we can say pip freeze. And here are our dependencies that we've installed. So at this point, you may have noticed that we installed these different dependencies, but we're not even inside of that specific project directory. You see, we are still in the directory that has all of our projects. So this virtual environment follows us around regardless of where we're located in the terminal. So what we could do is we could change directory into project 1 and start doing Django stuff, building websites, and that virtual environment's going to follow us there. And no matter where we're at, we're going to see the same exact dependencies. And let's say we wanted to switch over to project 2. Well, I might say cd ... project 2. Even though we're in the project 2 directory, we are still in the project 1 virtual environment. So when we say pip freeze, we still see the same exact stuff. So just be careful. You know, if you're working on multiple projects, you might mix it up and things aren't working. Well, you might have a virtual environment activated, but it could be the wrong virtual environment. Yeah, confusing. That's why I like to just keep the virtual environment in the project I'm working on. And don't jump around to different directories a whole lot. So if we wanted to switch over to project 2, we would just say deactivate, and then we can activate the project 2 virtual environment. Same thing, dot, but now we need to move up a directory, which you do with 2 dots. So that's basically saying to go up a directory from project 2 into the virtual environments directory, into project 2, into bin, and then activate. There we go. Now we have project 2 activated, and we can say pip freeze and see that we now no longer have anything installed because we haven't installed anything within this virtual environment. So these are attached to our virtual environment, but they're not on paper. We haven't put them in a text file that we can save and upload to source control or deploy with. So that's what we're going to talk about in the next video. As you can probably tell, this can get fairly complex. That's why I like to keep it simple and just keep that virtual environment in the project I'm working on. But I thought I would show you both, so that way you are more versatile, and if you see examples online, you'll be able to understand better. But if you kind of got lost on the multi-project part, it's probably fine. As long as you just follow along with these videos, you'll get a better understanding of how virtual environments work, and later on you can come back and watch this part. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode. I think it's going to be a good one. It's because they're all great, right? Thank you so much. Peace out.